With their 2025 tight end commits in check, is tight end the most solid spot on the Florida Gators roster?
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free if you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Tuesday. It's Tight End Tuesday, I guess. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Playoffs are kaput. They're donezo. We got Euros going on. We got Copa America going on. Sports ain't sporting like we want them to all summer long, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. I logged in today and I checked. I opened FanDuel and it was like, hey, you know what we're giving you? 10% profit boosts. Chef's kiss. Beautiful job, FanDuel. That's right. Something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And when I say is tight end maybe the most solid spot on the roster, I don't mean, the best players on the team are at tight end. I don't mean my favorite players on the tight end on the team play tight end, so that's what I care about. I mean, in terms of proven talent at the position right now. You got Arliss, you got Hayden, you got Keon Zipper. Tony Livingston was promising. I'm not going to say he's proven talent, just saying as an example. Proven talent, as well as having long-term answers. Tight end's up there. I think that tight end rivals quarterback, maybe running back, because we're looking at what you have now that's proven. So quarterback, you've got Graham Mertz. Tight end, you've got Hayden and Arliss. Running back, you've got Montrell. And then talking about what you have in the future, quarterback, you've got DJ Lagway, Will Griffin. Tight end, you've got Amir Jackson just came in. You've got both of the 2025 commits, which we'll talk about later. And then, of course, running back, you've got both the 2025 commits. You've got Trayon Webb from last year. Like you've got guys. But I think most of the other positions up in the air. Tight end, I do think, is a pretty good case for being the most solid in terms of proven present ability, as well as having long-term answers. Like looking at the pass catching types, you've got Arliss Boardingham and Keon Zipper. And Keon Zipper missed the entire year last year, showed decent promise throughout his Florida Gators career. I mean, I know that a lot of us, we go back to that 2022 game in Tennessee, or at Tennessee at Neyland Stadium, and you see Anthony Richardson hits Keon Zipper. Keon Zipper bowls dude over right at like the 2-yard line and gets into the nasty, savage play. I know that all of us loved it. I loved it. I went nuts. I was watching that game with most of my family, and we all went nuts. And I am the only Florida fan in my family. Most of them don't even care about football, but a lot of them were just like, "Oh my god!" Like Keon Zipper has shown some intense flashes. Arliss Boardingham. You look at the multiple drives where he goes ghost at times, but then again, he shows up in important drives. Arkansas game, we saw him, and then during the spring game, he had that last catch when they were like, yeah, we were kind of hoping to get him the ball there. Made too many men miss. Vanderbilt game, he had 2 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. South Carolina, he had a couple big catches. Like Arliss has had his big moments where he's shown that flash that we look for with him. Because when he was coming out of high school, he wasn't the highest rated guy, but he was very highly touted amongst Florida Gators fans because he was a wide receiver / tight end hybrid, like wide receiver going to tight end. And we all, of course, were like, all right, might have us one of them ones. And he was from California. And that was a lot of hype, too, to get a kid from California to want to come to Gainesville and play football for you. That was big. Because don't forget, that was also Billy Napier's first class. That was Billy Napier's transition class, was what are we going to get here? And that's what he got there. And that was huge for him. Then you talk about the inline type, because Florida, they have 2 starting tight ends. I've said before, I don't care about, is it Hayden or Arliss? They're such different receivers. They're such different tight ends. It's like playing completely different positions. It's like, well, who's starting at tackle or guard? Like that kind of thing. We're like, yeah, you're both on the O-line. but you're so different just stylistically and responsibility-wise. In line type, you've got Hayden Hansen and then Tony Livingston. Hayden for a long time had the most snaps played without allowing a pressure for anybody, but especially at tight end. Hayden was up there in the entire country, not just Florida. He was up there dominating as a blocker. He did that. He didn't allow a pressure until week 11 at LSU last year. And he was in pass protection a lot, okay? Like 6 to 10 times per game, 6 to 12 times per game. He's in pass pro. Allowed one pressure, or didn't allow any pressures until week 11. Like, that's what he does. In the run game, big contributor as well. You look at the Utah game, and Hayden, I don't think Hayden played at all in the first half. Comes out as a starter in the second half, replaced Dante Sanders, and immediately put Lander Barton on the ground. Like, those are the kinds of flashes we saw with Hayden. And then we saw some flashes as a pass catcher with Hayden. You look at the Florida State game, Max Brown hitting him down the sideline. LSU, they just didn't cover him, and he just went right down for a big gain. He can do those things. Where I think they both have strengths and weaknesses, of course. Like, Arliss leaves a lot to be desired as a blocker still. Hayden, I don't think has a ton of wiggle, so I think it's going to be hard for him to create consistent separation at tight end. But hey, you're 6'7", 280 almost, and you can run straight really fast. Work the seams, get open. Like, that's fine by me. Then like, the far depth, you've got Scott Isaacs, who we saw play special teams last year. We saw him contribute a little bit as the third pass catching tight end there. Gavin Hill, who was the 2023 D lineman, moved to tight end this past spring, played decently in the spring game, had showed some flashes in the spring game. Again, it was the spring game, so it's take it with a grain of salt, but he showed some flashes that you should be happy about, right? Like, you should look at that and say, okay, yeah, those weren't starter quality snaps, but you put out some film that makes me a little bit optimistic that you can contribute a bit here. That's all I need, right? Like, that's fine by me to look at that and say, hey, that's where we're working with that tight end. Then you can talk about Amir Jackson, 2024 true freshman, who, look, I know Florida Gators fans want to say that he's going to play and he's going to contribute and he's going to do a great job there. I'm not as sold on it. Just to be completely honest with you, he played glorified receiver in high school. That's what he did. He was running end arounds. He was running reverses, like catching screens on the outside. He wasn't truly playing tight end. He's not going to be a contributor this year, in my opinion. I think he needs to bulk up, because while you can say, yeah, but he's a pass catching tight end, you still need to be able to hang and bang with these big defensive linemen, these big linebackers in the SEC. I don't think Amir Jackson can do that right now. Okay. Like, Hayden and Arliss returning as starters is awesome for the team. Genuinely. I think we see both of them take the next step. I think that we see Arliss. I do think that Arliss has benefited from the strength and conditioning program that's been put in. I expect him to be a significantly better blocker this year. And Hayden, honestly, my main thing is like, just throw the ball up to him in the end zone. He's 6'7". Like, he's 6'7". He's played basketball. He was a rebounder. Like, throw the ball up to him. He's a big dude. Just get the ball up. That's what I want to see. Like, that's it. Like, usage-wise, you can see significant improvement from both of them. I do think that using Arliss more of like have him in motion at the snap and let him just go and hammer the jack linebacker or whoever it is. Just let him go as he's going in motion, snap the ball with that, like, have him run the little jet, hand it to a running back, let Arliss lead block and just crack the jack linebacker, the nickel, whoever it is, just crack them. Like, that's what I want to say. And there's a lot of scheme things that Florida can do this year, and Florida has done, that can make that position even more effective for them in 2024. I love sports. Unsurprisingly, the guy who hosts a podcast covering sports loves sports. I love him so much that I never want him to stop, but playoffs are done. We've still got the Euros and Copa, but not for long. So we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to, but FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood, which is a lot. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And like I said, Florida tight end usage in 2024 could be considerably better than it was in 2023. And I don't just mean in terms of, give them the ball more. I mean, first off, 12 personnel is always going to be a thing. Yeah, that's right, baby. That's right. We're talking 12 personnel here. I get pumped to talk 12 personnel. I know so many fans hate it. I love 12 personnel. So I am excited that we get to see it again this year. We're going to see it a lot this year. 12 personnel, of course, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers. So in this case, Hayden Hansen and the inline, Arliss Boardingham as the pass catcher, 12 personnel, gives you great threats all around. Again, I don't think Arliss is bad as a blocker. I just don't think he's good as a blocker, and I would like to see him be better. Hayden as a pass catcher has been so infrequently even looked at. 15 targets last year? Yeah, 15 targets, 12 catches on 15 targets last year. That's what he had in 2023. Arliss had almost 40 targets. But I think that having both of them is just very promising. And I've even called that 11.5 personnel before. Because, and I've mentioned this, Sean McVay with the Los Angeles Rams, similar offense stylistically, at least what Sean McVay was, is similar to what Billy Napier is stylistically. Not saying play calling wise and tendencies and all that, but stylistically. But he's talked about 11.5 personnel, which is we're putting 3 receivers on the field. One of them blocks really well. So it's kind of like having 2 tight ends on the field while also still having those receivers. I like an 11.5 personnel for Florida as the opposite way, where I say you've got 2 receivers on the field, 2 tight ends on the field, but one of them runs pretty damn good routes and can be used like a receiver. That's what Arliss is, right? So I think that, or at least that's my opinion of Arliss. So I think that having that 11.5 personnel is a big advantage for Florida because as a defense, you have to go, well, do we put a linebacker on Arliss and we kind of put ourselves at a disadvantage in coverage? Do we put the slot on Arliss and then we kind of put ourselves in a disadvantage in the run game? Do we put a safety on Arliss and just hope that we get to cover him? Just hope that that's the possibility while bringing one safety down and probably setting yourself up in a position to have only one high safety at that point. And if Florida wants to try to push the ball deep downfield, they could try to do that. And then you can't have safety help over Trey Wilson, really, right? Or Elijah Badger. So what do you do there as a defensive coordinator? Honestly, I got no clue, but that's the benefit that Florida has with 11.5 personnel. I do think that it's really, really underestimated how effective that personnel grouping can be of having Graham Mertz at quarterback, obviously, your 5 offensive linemen, Montrell Johnson behind Graham, next to Graham, whatever, having Elijah Badger out wide, Trey Wilson out wide, and then Hayden Hansen in line, Arliss Boardingham in line on the other side, and next to Hayden in the slot, whatever it is. I do think that personnel grouping specifically, first off, we'll see it a lot this year. Secondly, I think that grouping that we see will have a very high EPA per play, which I know a lot of casual fans probably don't care about. And I think even most diehard fans don't care about the EPA per play. But this Florida Gators coaching staff cares about analytics, okay? And EPA per play, a very, very, we'll say, heavily weighted analytic metric there. So Florida will care about it, even if you don't. So I think that 11.5 personnel grouping, which is really 12 personnel, but you get my point. I think that'll be really effective this year. I think we'll see a lot of split zone this year as well, which if you don't remember split zone, buddy, split zone read, my favorite. Any split zone is what I love, where basically, let's say I'm Hayden Hansen, same size, right? But lined up behind the left tackle, next to the left tackle, whatever. You run the ball to the left side, but I run and block outside the right tackle. Whole offensive line blocks to the left, and then I'm sealing the gap so that you have a cutback if you want it. That's the big benefit. is that when you're going in these zone blocking schemes, which Florida will still be heavily zone blocking this year, when you're going with these zone blocking schemes, or at least I believe they will be, when you're going with zone blocking, you kind of leave that backside end. He tends to get unblocked quite a bit just because, again, when everybody's blocking to the left, then if he's on the outside of your right tackle, no one's picking him up because your right tackle is going to the left and picking up the D tackle. So no one's picking up that right tackle, that guy on the outside of your right tackle, which means you don't have that cutback lane if you're a running back. Split zone, however, you come in and you clean him up. And not only do you have a cutback lane, you've got a big cutback lane because he's the guy on the edge and he's now being blocked by a tight end. And then you have that big cutback lane if you're running. Like I know that everybody that watched the spring game, you talk about Jaden Baugh and the cutback angles. Imagine if he had that. Whole O-line going left, whole defense going to be going to that same side. Big cutback right in between the right tackle and Hayden and get some space and get going. That's big. There's also GH counter, which is more gap based, but GH counter is, let's say, just for the sake of sticking on the left side, tight ends on the outside of the left tackle. Running back takes a step to that left side and then cuts to the right with the hand like counter. You have the guard on the left side and the tackle and the tight end on the left side both pull across. We saw Florida find a lot of success doing that last year. And I've been saying this since the move of Damian George. Damian George is really good as a puller. Okay. So GH counter is something that you should be running a lot. I want to see Hayden line up on the right side with Damian George at right guard and have GH counter and just go, yeah, we got big dudes coming through. Get out the way or we will move you out of the way. Because I think Damian George has been really good as a puller. And so that opens that up. And again, you watch Tennessee, you watch Vanderbilt, you watch a lot of SEC games, and you watch a lot of Florida's runs when they found success. Counter was a decent part of it, specifically GH counter. Again, guard and the H, that tight end coming across. A lot of success there. You sprung some big runs for Florida. I remember it still was Trayon Webb picked up on a first down, if I'm not mistaken. It was like 1st and 10. Takes GH counter, first down immediately. Takes it again, and they went, I think, 40 yards. It was just big plays get sprung from it because you're telling the running back essentially where they're running, and then you're kind of overloading that side of blockers. But also that little counter step, that little misdirection there, can get an aggressive linebacker or safety flying down in that direction, gives you even more of a numbers advantage there. And so I think schematically, you got those in the run game. In the passing game, boot slide, something that I will always pound the table for. Boot slide is, again, imagine tight end next to or behind the left tackle. Then snap the ball, hit that little play fake to the left side. Tight end runs to the right side. Doesn't pass the line of scrimmage, never crosses. Runs to the flat, catches it, usually open space. Just saying. And we saw Florida do it in the spring game. I remember Scott Isaacs caught it in 2023. We saw Florida break it out during the season a little bit. We saw Arliss Boardingham score a touchdown on that. If you watched any Micah Jones tape, the 2025 tight end commit, the first tight end to commit, we saw, if you watch that film, you see him run boot slide a little bit. We saw Florida do it. It works better with a mobile quarterback, which is why I don't think they ran it a ton with Graham Mertz. But they ran it in 2022 with Anthony Richardson. I think they'll run it again this year, especially as they feel a little bit more comfortable with their offensive line holding up while Graham does the play fake, rolls out, and then looks for whichever tight end it is. I think both of them can thrive on it as well. We saw Hayden do it in high school, caught it in the flat, get going downfield. I mean, corners out there probably aren't going to be able to tackle him much. And Arliss, the same thing. You run that with him, they're not going to be able to tackle him very much. So I think that getting more boot slide, yards after catch opportunities, those easy completions that you've been looking for Graham Mertz. And I think that you're talking about more production from your tight ends in the passing game, I guess, in 2024. And then, like I said, like there's the 2025 kids coming in who, by the way, both of them really excited for. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. Also, I will say before we wrap up today's show, please do be sure to like, subscribe, comment, leave a review if you want to. If you want to go on YouTube and type in Whole Nine Sports, WHOLENINE Sports, and follow that channel, I would love it. We're going to get EA Sports College Football 25s coming out in 2 weeks at this point. So I can't freaking wait for that. But we're getting a ton of content there. We've been doing we've been doing 2 MLB Road to the Show careers that I don't know if we're going to continue those when football comes out, but for now we're having fun with it, right? But the 2025 class has 2 tight ends committed, and we've known this whole time Florida is planning on taking 2 tight ends in this 2025 class. That's been their plan. They've got them both committed. They're done, right? And I want to make it clear, I like both of them as takes. I sent this to the insider group yesterday, which if you're not a part of and you want to be, the link's in the description below. But I sent this out yesterday when I was evaluating both of these guys' films, and I was like, look, I know 3 stars are 3 stars for a reason, right? They've got risk attached to them. Each of them have risk. Every 3-star is a 3-star for a reason. And I'm not someone that gets hung up on rankings, but I understand what some of the doubts are, what some of the questions are, and why you go, hey, that's a 3-star. I get it. Don't get me wrong. But I like both of these takes. I do think that they both have roles. I mean, Hayden was a 3-star. I'm pretty sure Arliss wasn't a consensus 4-star. I think he was a 3 at some spots, 4 at the others. So I don't get too hung up on the rankings, and I don't get too offended about rankings, but I will say 3 stars, they have roles. Like, that's what I look for. When Florida brings in a 3-star, I say, okay, at the absolute minimum, is there a role I see for you on this team? And if there is, then I'm fine with it. Cool with it. Absolutely. With Micah Jones, the first tight end to commit out of Madison, Mississippi, he committed 2 Fridays ago to the Florida Gators. He is the inline option at, I think he's listed as 6'4", 245. So already good size for a tight end that's going to be playing. I don't think he's going to be playing early, but a tight end that'll be on the field somewhat soonish. I think he's one of those guys we can see play as a redshirt freshman, not start, but play as a redshirt freshman. I mean, looking at the rest of the tight end room right now that the Florida Gators actually have, Arliss is 6'3", 240. Keon Zipper is 6'1 1/4", 245. Scott Isaacs is 6'4", 255. Tony Livingston's 6'4 3/4", 253. Gavin Hill 6'3", 253. Hayden 6'6 1/4", 272 pounds. Hayden's the outlier there at 272, right? But for Micah Jones, he's what, 10 pounds away from being the second heaviest tight end in the room already? If he's 245, maybe 235. Even then, though, that's from now until you get expected to be on the field in 2 seasons. Plenty of time to gain that little weight that you need to if they think you need to gain some weight. So he's an inline option. One thing that I liked about Micah Jones is that in high school, he's already playing the inline role. And I think that a lot of high school tight ends play more of that flex, that glorified receiver spot than anything else. I'm just being honest. I think that when you watch high school film, a lot of tight ends, you go, yeah, he's a tight end, but he's really playing slot, H-back. Like, he's not fully playing an inline next to the tackle tight end role. Micah Jones did that at Madison. So I think that's one thing that you like to see, just being that comfort. And we saw it with Chad Gasper, the running back that's committed. He's been playing running back in a pistol offense. He's been playing a role that they're going to ask him to play at Florida. I do think that gives you a leg up as far as, one, makes the evaluation easier, because if you've seen a guy succeed running out of pistol, then you know, hey, he can run out of pistol, fine. Micah Jones, you see him succeeding playing inline tight end, you go, okay, he could play inline tight end. That's great for us. It makes that evaluation a little bit easier, but also just in terms of comfort, I think that you speed up that developmental process a little bit in terms of when can they contribute. I think playing that role already gives you that help. And Micah Jones, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he needs a lot of work technique-wise. His technique is kind of a mess right now in terms of hand placement and being able to consistently drive his legs with power, but willingness as a blocker is absolutely there. I mean, you cut on his film, and the first play is him on a block and release. which Florida is going to have you do. So you cut on the film in the first play, block, release. Does it. He's got pop in his punch there. There's one play, puts a dude on the ground. Like there's pop in his punch. And now, of course, he's doing this against high school kids. We'll see how it goes when you get to the SEC when things are just built differently there. But having that skill set already is huge. And it's impressive. I don't care if you don't find it impressive, that's fine. That's on you. You could be wrong. But having that comfort in that role and having the skill set to perform in that role consistently, it's there. Like Micah Jones, good ad. I don't know if he's going to climb rankings, but I do think that he's pretty good. Doesn't have much wiggle for yards after the catch or separation. I don't think he's as rigid as Hayden Hansen. I also don't think he's as fast as Hayden. Hayden, not very mobile, or not that he's not very mobile. Sorry. Not very agile, wiggly, whatever you want to call it. He doesn't wiggle a ton. He's got relatively stiff hips. He's fast. He's 20.3 miles per hour this spring. I don't think Mike is going to hit that speed. I think Mike has got a bit more wiggle to his game. Not going to make men miss, but a bit more wiggle. Tayshawn Gelsey, who just committed this past weekend out of Jacksonville, needs to add weight. He's listed as, I think, 6'3", 215 or 6'4", 215. Needs to add weight desperately. Great jump ball threat. He plays receiver right now. But great jump ball threat with a big catch radius. And I don't mean by catch radius. I think when I say catch radius, a lot of people mean, oh, he can go high point. Tayshawn Gelsey can high point the ball. Absolutely. That's what he does a lot of in high school. They're kind of just like, hey, you're bigger than everyone. Go get it. And he does that a lot. But I mean, in Tayshawn Gelsey's tape, you see him get low and catch the ball by his ankles. You see him reach out wide and catch the ball out wide. That's what I mean by catch radius. Like Johnny Wilson from Florida State. One of the things with him is that he doesn't have a big catch radius. He's 6'7", but he's such a rigid athlete that he doesn't go low frequently. He can go high, he can go left and right, but he can't go low. And even left and right, High, yeah, sure. But that's it. Like Tayshawn Gelsey has a huge catch radius. I think he can be more effective than Arliss. I'm not saying he's going to be, but I think he'd be more effective than Arliss as a pass-catching type because Arliss Boardingham, as good as he is as a receiver, I don't want to take anything away from him. I feel like he didn't find much success when he lined up as an actual receiver, out wide. I think a lot of his success was when he was lined up in line or when he was lined up in the slot. I don't think he found a ton of success when he was lined up out wide. And I think part of that is that he's not a giant. He's not a big jump ball. He's 6'3", 240. He's not a big jump ball guy. So I think when you have Tayshawn Gelsey, who's a jump ball receiver, you have more success out wide because now you're lined up against a corner. It's like, all right, buddy, let's get into it. Let's see how it goes. I am curious to see how Tayshawn Gelsey's movement skills change when he gains weight. Because again, he needs to gain weight. I'm curious to see how his speed, agility, and vertical, as well as just mobility in terms of being able to actually stretch up and go up and high for the ball, get down low for the ball. I'm curious to see what happens with Tayshawn Gelsey when he gains that weight. Like I said, 3 stars to 3 stars for a reason. Micah Jones, limited as a pass catcher or a run after catch threat. Tayshawn Gelsey needs to gain weight, and gaining that weight might impact his athletic ability. 3 stars to 3 stars for a reason doesn't make them bad. And being able to identify those reasons, that's big. And being able to identify those reasons and say, hey, I think if we fix these, they can still be effective is also huge. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free every listen to the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow, talk more Florida Gators football. Maybe later if Tavian Wallace commits, but I really don't think that's happening. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work at Giants Country and NFL 33, and I'll see you all next time.